Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's discussion from Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. We are covering the chapter 15 as we left last time we discussed it. And we will continue from the verse 7 today of chapter 15. Verse 7. Mamevamsho jivaloke jivabhutah sanatanah manah shasthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Verse 8. Shariram yad vapnoti yachap yutkramati shwarah grihit vaitani samyati vayurgandha nivashayat. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one body and again quits it to take another. Verse 9. Shrotram chakshuh sparshanam cha rasanam ghranameva cha adhishthaya manaschayam vishayanu pasevate. Translation. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Verse 10. Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam vimhudananupashyanti pashyanti jnana chakshuchah. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Verse 11. Yatanto yoginaschainam pashantyatmanya vasthitam yatanto apyakritatmano nainam pashyantya chetasah. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. So, in the verses 1 to 6 of chapter 15, Krishna was telling us that liberation can be attained in this world only by detachment from the upside down banyan tree, which is our material world. It is upside down example of the spiritual world. It is completely perverted, completely opposed to how the spiritual sky is. And if we don't get liberation by following the instructions of Lord as given in verses 1 to 6, then what is going to happen is we will be just suffering the bondage and transmigration from one species to another. This will carry on for us regardlessly. In verse 7, Bhagavan is telling Arjun that the living beings in the conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts due to the conditioned life. They are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Yes, of course, Krishna has been telling us since chapter 14 that the three modes of material nature, they bind us to this world, and our sense objects they like to enjoy according to the bigger mode which is ruling ourselves, and also the particular time. So we all are conditioned, we all are suffering very hard with our six senses, because the six senses are always looking for the sense objects, and the mind is ready to indulge our senses, and together we can say they just make life hard for us, even we know what is right thing for us to do. So our identity has been clearly shown to us in this verse. Prabhupada is telling us in the purport that we are the part and parcel of Supreme Lord. Fragmental parts, of course, that means we are part and parcel. We are different in quantity, but quality-wise we are same as the Lord, our souls, ourselves, because that is our identity. And Lord is Sanatana, Lord is eternal. And eternally, our souls are also eternal because they are part and parcel of the Lord. And also it's been told that the primary expansions of the Lord are called Vishnu Tattva. They are the personal expansions of the Lord, and we as living entities, we are the separated persons, separated expansions of the Lord. Lord has come to this world in various forms, just as in various expansions, just as Lord Ram, Nrsimhadev, Vishnumurti, and all other deities of the Vaikuntha planets. And we are eternal servants of Bhagwan, but we appear as separated from the Lord in this material world. And of course, God has told us it's just the devotional service that is going to take us back closer to Lord to serve Him in His abode. So not just us and the animals which we see in this world, but also the great controllers of the material worlds, just like Brahma, Lord Shiva and Vishnu, they are all part and parcels of the Supreme Lord. They are all eternal. They always exist. Their existence doesn't ceases ever. They're all eternal and they're not temporary manifestations. The word karshati in this shlok means that struggling hard, trying to come into the grip of or to understand how to get out of this. So we all are struggling very hard as conditioned souls, and it is just like being shackled by the iron chains. How we are shackled by the iron chains, we have been discussing this again and again, as the purpose of Srila Prabhupada tell us. We're bound up by the false ego, and mind is the chief agent or the chief culprit, which is driving us in this material existence. So when mind is in mode of goodness, it is helping us to do good activities. In passion, it is making us work hard. Our activities are troublesome as well in mode of passion. And in ignorance, a person will have to travel in the lower species of life because of his activities or karmas in that particular body. In Madhyanayana Shruti, it says, Sava Esha Brahma Nishtha Idam Shariram Martyam Atisarjya Brahma Bhishma Sampadaya Brahmana Pashyati Brahmana Shrunoti Brahmana Naivedam Sarvam Anubhavati. That is, that when a living entity gives up this material embodiment and enters into the spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body, and in his spiritual body he can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. And from Smriti, Shruti is by hearing, and the Smriti also tells that Vasanti yatra purushah sarve vaikuntha murtayah. In the spiritual planet, everyone lives in bodies featured like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the Supreme World, the body is just like the Lord's body. As far as bodily construction is concerned, there is no difference between the part and parcel living entities and the expansions of Vishnumurti. So, in other words, when the liberation is given to a conditioned soul, it gets a spiritual body by the grace of the Supreme Lord. Now, the word Mamevamshah in this verse 7, says that Krishna is telling us that we are the fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Like in chapter 2, Krishna was telling us that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces, it cannot be burned, the wind cannot destroy it, the air cannot destroy it, and water cannot dissolve it. So this fragment, which is our Atma, it is not made up of the material elements. It is part and parcel of Bhagwan. It is eternal. It always exists, even after the body ceases to exist. In verse 8, Krishna says that the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aroma. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So in this verse 8, living entity or the living being is described as Ishwar, the controller of his own body. So if he likes, so why a person is called Ishwar in this verse? They're saying that Bhagwan is saying that a person is controller of their own body. So if they like, they can change their body to a higher grade in next birth. And if they don't act rightly, they can get a birth in a lower species as well. So a little bit independence has been given to us by the Lord. Lord is telling us in this verse that our deeds, our karma, they decide. So as we are living in this life, even at the present moment, we are designing our next body through our karmas. So our desires, they will determine our actions, and our actions, they will lead us into our next body day by day. In verse 9, Krishna is saying that the living entity takes another gross body. Gross body, as we know, is made of 5 elements: air, water, earth, ether, and sky. And according to the next birth of their desire, the living entity will have a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, sense of touch, which are grouped by the mind. Because mind is having some kind of interplay with our senses, and this is how our actions are coming to unfold in our life. So that way a person is going to enjoy a certain type of sense objects according to the senses they have gotten in their next life. So what we desired in the last life, according to that, we have got the senses in this life, and according to the senses we have got, we are enjoying certain types of sense objects, and our mind is also involved in enjoying alongside our senses. So when a particular type of sense object which is liked by our senses is seen, our mind is going to just divert our attention to that, and that's it. But we have got intelligence which is higher than that, so we should remember the instructions and try to engage our mind in right things as much as we can. So consciousness is originally very pure, just like water, the purport tells us. So as the water is mixed with certain color, it changes its color. Similarly, our consciousness, if it's mixed with the higher or lower kind of sense objects, our consciousness is going to change in that respect. But the real consciousness of our self is Krishna consciousness. But because we are in the material world, and because with the association of the material objects, we are influenced, and thus we have kind of forgotten our original consciousness, which is to be always in Krishna consciousness, to understand the Krishna supremacy in everything and everyone around us. So we go through 8.4 million species, suffering one life to another, and if we have got a little bit of understanding, we should try to behave in Krishna consciousness, in the serving of Krishna. It's very easy, it's not difficult. We have been reading in Prabhupada's books again and again. All we have to do is just bring Krishna in the middle of our lives and just live our lives, and it's simple as that. Try to eat as much as food which has been offered to Lord, and serve Lord, and understand the relationships, and everything in this life is actually given to us by Krishna. We are only the caretakers in this life. Verse 10 tells us that the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body. They can also not understand that what sort of body he enjoys under the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So Jnana Chakshusha, and if one has got the knowledge, then one is going to make sure that one is able to remember the Lord, and because whatever they will be thinking or saying or remembering at the time of passing, that is going to determine the next course of life, their next birth. And of course, a bona fide spiritual master, a guru, they will guide us. Here in ISKCON we see Prabhupada, he has written so much for everyone, so we can take advantage. Otherwise, we could never understand these shastras easily by ourselves. We couldn't decode them properly. We could not infer what the message of Krishna was in these shastras. So, if there is suffering in this world, but Lord has given us the way out of this suffering as well, which we should take advantage of. We should cultivate our knowledge. We should try to understand and try to become conscious, our consciousness more and more, which is dedicated to the Lord's service in this life, and come out of this. Try to live without getting too much attached to anything, because everything is temporary. The only thing which is permanent is our souls, and our souls, they move on. They don't just stay in one body forever. In verse 11, Krishna says that the endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see this all clearly, but the ones whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization, that is, they don't understand that they are not the body but they are the souls, such people who are not self-realized, they cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. So the yogis, they will be just chanting away in the Himalayas and going through the hard way, and the ones who are jnanis, they will be sitting in the places like Varanasi and just arguing and trying to learn more and more about the knowledge. Uh, but it's so easy in Krishna consciousness that you just understand that who has to be served, who is the object of your devotion, and you have to just do the devotional service to Krishna by realizing that you are not this body, you are the soul, and just look after your health, because that is the first thing you have to do. Then do the chanting, read the Prabhupada books, read the Shastras, read the translations done so nicely for us in different languages, eat the prasadam, have the association. It is not difficult. As we start practicing it, it becomes easier and easier for us, because we can see the results of that in our life. So this way, a person who realizes the Lord, who realizes that what is the highest consciousness of his or her soul, it is Krishna consciousness, then they will get liberated, and they will stop the transmigration of the soul from one body to another. So, in other words, we have to come into the Bhakti Yoga, or the pure devotional service of the Lord. We have to see that the hand of God is there in material things, because we can't see the soul. Soul we cannot see, we haven't got that eyes. Soul is very, very small. We've been told the size of the soul as well, the tip of the hair. Even that is divided into so many parts, and that cannot be even seen by the microscope. That small is the size of the soul. So we will just finish our discussion for today here, and we'll carry on from verses 12 onwards. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna.